All right, welcome one and all to another episode of PPC Unfiltered, the number one, in our opinion, podcast on all things paid search, pay-per-click. Michael Nadalin in Australia of MarketLead. He is on the screen with me. He is my co-host. Michael, how's it going, man?
Mate, I'm good. I'm good. I cannot believe it's already been another week since our last episode.
Yeah,
We're already in February. It feels like time is flying by,
it's
mate. I'm
crazy.
going well, but man, it's busy at the moment.
It's insane. Yep. I mean, it's the start of the year. It's the start of a new month. There's a lot going on.
Yep. Well, it's the start of the year. January really felt like a bit of a write-off month, not in a bad way for us, as the clients weren't back. So even though we were working and they were paying us, they were quiet. Now that they're all really coming back, especially in Australia, there's a public holiday on the 26th called Australia Day. And it's pretty much known in Australia from like Christmas to Australia Day is like dead for business in terms of just
Mm.
hearing from clients. But as soon as that weekend comes back, people are in full swing. So we're experiencing that. We have about 5 big clients starting. So it is fun and wild right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the last week's gone by really fast.
Awesome.
Crazy.
Well, in the nature of chaos, today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a fun episode for you. This is going to be, we're just going to call it a PPC free for all, right? We've
Yeah.
just got a bunch of topics and questions that we're going to ask each other. It's going to be wild. It's going to be crazy, but it's going to be fun and hopefully very educational for you guys along the way. You guys, if you've watched the show or listened to us for long enough, you know how we are. We'll get deep into some things. We'll just lightly touch on others. But we're going to get a lot of value for you guys out of this episode. And Michael, I would like to start with a very random question based on
Yes.
the topic you just brought up, which was Australia. Do you get a lot of clients in Australia? Is being Australian is that a USP for you?
Yeah, yeah, it
It is.
definitely
Okay.
is. Looking at the proportion of clients, hmm, it's probably about 50 or 60% Australian and then 40%
Oh,
international.
oh wow.
So
Okay.
it's interesting. The Australian work we get is referral work, and the US work or the international work's usually from the internet originally, then with um, referrals coming from that as well. So
Okay.
I do prefer. Actually, it's just strange. Like Australian clients, I find it easier to do, but US clients are easier to scale. Just because, yeah. Anyway, that's the answer to it.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I
what about
actually thought it would
what
be
about
less.
you, mate? What about you? What percentage breakdown of clients is from the US versus other locations?
Oh, I mean, it's easily 80%. I mean, U.S. businesses, right? It tends to
Yeah,
be something that most advertising agencies are going after, from my experience. So, yeah, I think time zone is a big part of it, right? We want to be on the same time
yeah.
zone as our clients. Does that happen with Australia too, I imagine?
It's the time. Like we've got clients in like LA, New York. It's fine. It
Hmm.
really doesn't make a difference. I always think it is, and then when I jump on a call with them at like 11 a.m. our time, they're like, "Yeah, it's 3 p.m. here." I'm like, "What is these time?" I always think it's like some like hour of the night that's like 2 a.m. for them, but it's like they're like, "Yeah, we're only like 4 hours ahead of you. Well, 20 hours behind." I always with America, I always just think they're ahead, but minus a day.
That's what we want you to think. We're
Yes,
always
yeah.
ahead.
Mate,
What
you
about
know what?
European clients? What? Go
Mate,
ahead. Go ahead.
I've actually something just pinged to my mind now. So even though this is a thrilling conversation right now, this is actually really timely, and I think this might throw a curveball in. Okay, what's happening in America at the moment with the tariffs, quote unquote, potential tariffs
Uh
with
huh.
Mexico, China, and Canada? What are you seeing with your clients? Because I had a call with one of my clients. Shout out to Donald, you're a legend, mate. And with his e-commerce store, it was originally Australian, and then we launched in the US late last year, and it's been constantly growing. It was starting at about a 3x, and now it's up to a 5x. But their
Mm-hmm.
revenue last month increased by 160%, like over six figures. And we're chatting about it. And this was just in January against December, which December was its biggest month before. And we're
Mm-hmm.
discussing it. It's not like I've done some magical voodoo in the ad account, but we're just talking about the market forces, especially recently with Trump coming back in and then these threats around tariffs, and then these new things talking about how orders under $800 from China are not going to be able to come through without being taxed. But the issue is they're just being stopped now rather than being processed. You're from America. You're an e-commerce guru. Tell me your thoughts on this right now. I'm
So that
seeing
was a very
outstanding results. But
a couple things. So that I think maybe you're referring to the USPS stoppage.
Yep.
China. So that's from people I know in the logistics world that has already returned back to normal. So that was a very temporary stoppage. Okay. Though they're kind of like, all right, we need to put in some contingency plans in case that happens again.
But it is a threat to clients,
it's very
businesses, especially if they're coming from products from China.
Yep, exactly. Which is a lot, right? Especially in the e-commerce space. If you're selling physical products, whatever, that is something to be concerned about and something to prepare for. Absolutely. I'd say the most unique perspective is businesses that are trying to get ahead of this, that they sort of planned for this because he had campaigned on this idea, the whole tariffs thing. So what they did is they bought a lot of inventory ahead of time, and they're overstocked because they would rather do that so they're not passing along additional costs to their client base or to their customer base. Yeah. So that's probably the most unique thing. Everyone else is expecting, depending on how this all goes, to have to increase prices and pass those additional costs on to the consumer, unfortunately.
Have you noticed, well, I'd love to say I'm not up to date with American politics, but I actually am, and it's quite embarrassing. Have you noticed that with some of your US clients that they've had a bump in sales because people have been preemptively buying things before the potential tariffs and increases on product prices?
I wouldn't have a way to directly create any causation or correlations between those, so I couldn't say that I've seen that necessarily. I think that's an interesting theory, but I feel like so many people are not really sure what's going to happen. So I also don't expect the normal American consumer to plan ahead that much and buy these things beforehand. Though I know some people in the tech space that, if it's kind of a mixed batch, not to get super nerdy on you guys, but in terms of the newest GPU technologies, the 500 series are going to be dropping, are already starting to drop in some cases. So some people in the tech world, they are buying those larger devices with those newer chips now because they're expecting those costs to continue to rise throughout the year, especially given these tariffs. So I think it's maybe a mixed batch. On the personal side, I'm hearing some things, but I don't have any correlations with my accounts right now.
Yeah, interesting. I just found it, I've noticed it across a few clients, but I had a chat with this client on Tuesday, and it was just, he's really on top of his business and numbers. He's grown it from when we started working, it was around $1 million a year. It's scaled over over 8 figures now in just less than 2 years. So we are always talking about the bigger picture, holistic marketing, but also in business as well. And we'll just notice that the US aspect of this line of his business, bless
thank you,
is had completely taken off. And before, looking at the direct factors in terms of ad accounts, there were no major shifts. And just looking at the market forces, another big thing is competitors, people who are reliant on China, would be advertising less because their products were going out of stock, which means less competition in the market, less market. Then naturally you take over more market share. Then as a cause to this, when you're a small business going over in America, you're competing against all the bigger brands as well. So when they're pulling back their ad spends, you have the potential to, one, get more market share, even if it's marginal, but two, get more brand awareness, even for a temporary period of time, get initial volume of clients and customers coming through, and then using that just to keep funneling through. So there are always opportunities and bad things happening. When things are happening to big players in industries, if you're a small player and you're dynamic and you can actually do things, you can actually grab market share as it's hanging there. It was the same as us, Cory. A lot of where we got to right now is based on Performance Max. That shook up the Google Ads industry. All these big agencies and companies were using standard shopping and smart shopping. PMax comes out, shakes up the game. We talk about it. People become clients of ours. And all these years later, we're all happy and rich. So I
Yeah.
think there's always opportunity. But I just wanted to know if you'd noticed anything there. Obviously, you haven't, but we all can't notice the market trends fast, mate.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, this to circle back to how this applies to PPC and strategies, right? I do think that this lends to if you don't have some kind of automation that's monitoring price fluctuation for your clients or for your accounts or for your own business, if you're not the one setting the price, but you're the one managing the account, this is something that's very important that we talk about a lot is monitoring the price changes because that can absolutely impact your conversion rates, which are going to impact everything else. This is something that you want to monitor either through automation if you can, or just keeping a direct line with the client, just having open communication with the client on, hey, look, these types of products, this department or this individual product, we decided to increase the price. What we don't want is to be surprised. We don't want to figure out later that a couple of our best sellers, or I'm just trying to keep it simple, right? Instead of make it complex, but a couple of those products have really gone up in price, let's say 20-30% or something. We weren't informed of that. And then we miss out on optimizing accordingly, right? And profitability starts dipping, or we see conversion rates dipping, we're thinking it's something else. Obviously we monitor average sale cost and average order value, but there's only so much that we know and we can react to in real time. So we just need to give you guys that reminder, right? Always keep in communication with the client. If you're a client and you have someone else managing your account, really it's important for you guys to keep us in the loop on price changes so we can stay on top of optimizing your account accordingly. So I think this also speaks to that. Yeah.
Nice one, Cory. Sweet. So let's keep the PPC, whatever you call this episode. In my head, I just called the PPC chaos episode.
Chaos episode. So, well, actually, Michael, you had mentioned partnerships and referrals and things from Australia. So what are some maybe top tips that you have for managing referral partnerships and maybe creating those referral partnerships? Because that is a big part of how you've gotten business in the past and now. What are some tips you can give our listeners and watchers?
I don't have any referral partnerships. It's just clients refer us business. So in terms of referral partnerships, my company did start off with that based on like two other parties that did really help the momentum going. Look, my only recommendation there is just be a good person and be good at what you do, and don't it's really hard because you've got to give before you take. And sometimes people are giving the wrong things. So this is it's just basically nepotism. You just got to know the right people and just be a good person. And also it's who you know, but also how good you are. So I just think it's that. And as much as I wish I could give a cookie cutter answer just that applies to everyone, it's it's not. This is the sample size of this is one, which is me, and it's based on my experience. And I'm not a guru, I'm not a teacher, but I just think the way I've noticed that I've been able to launch two companies now successfully in long run is purely relationship. It's not through ads, it's not through content, it's just through knowing the right people, creating deep relationships, offering value for years beforehand. And I think that's the thing, you got to be focusing on medium to long term. Even for clients at the moment, rather than raising prices, I just go, no, the value here is not about making a bit more money off this client. It's about giving them a good rate, a great service, and a great outcome. So then they refer 3 other people. So instead of getting a 20% increase in management fees, I'm getting a 4x because I'm getting 3 other and additional people. It's a mindset. You can't start off there because you've got to make ends meet. But at the same time, at some point, you've got to realize all business is a relationship game, and you've got to move beyond just thinking how can I just get my piece, rather than going, how can I give so much to so many people that if I give to 100 people generously, 2 of them will give back to me, and those 2 will flood my business for the rest of my life. That's how I think at least.
I love that. All right, I'm gonna say he's hiding the real info, guys. There's secrets and hacks. I'm kidding.
Yes, I'm hard. I'm a Freemason, and it's my Freemason bros. I'm joking.
Yes, I knew it. I saw the symbol you threw up at the start of the episode.
It's weird. It's kind of I don't know. It's really hard because it's almost like when you don't need it, you'll get it. So it's when you're just I can't take on any more clients. People are like, here's more business for you. I don't know. It's just like an energetic thing. But going back to referral partners, I just think it really comes down to be good at what you do. Let your results speak, and then just be a good
Yeah.
person and connect with people who, it's interesting, who are in business but not in your industry. So I've found that when I've been in masterminds for Google Ads and other stuff, I'm not going to get referrals from them. Like, why would I? Because they're going after the same kill. And then
Right.
if I'm like, SEO or web people, as much as you think that would be because it's a complimentary service, still, I've got little bits and bobs. What I've found is actually just like people who are in business. And this is why I love it. Like people in business, but who are maybe a bit older. Like I'm 33, but people who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, because they've been in business for a long time. They have a lot of business friends, but they still have no idea about digital. So if you're just like a nice person, you're good with results, you've just been giving them value, when they're talking to their business circle or echelon, they just go, oh, Michael or MarketLead, I know them, you should speak to them. So I found that a lot of better referral partners just comes from just having friendship with people who are outside the digital industry, but who are in business.
Yeah.
That's actually the secret. I thank you for like pushing me on that, because I realized that's it. It's not in mastermind circles. It's not in complementary services like web or SEO or email marketing. It's people in business who may be a bit older, who have like a bit of a network, and then they're not going, oh, like who should I go with, Cory Lindholm or Michael Nadalin? Because I'm watching their videos and it's like they're on par. It's like I'm the only one they know of, and then it just flows from there.
Now,
What
what
are your thoughts
about,
on that, mate?
well, real quick, I'm curious, conferences, people say that, well, what if I go to conferences and network and stuff? What do you think about that?
I don't go to conferences. Now, it's something I know I need to do, but even as I'm saying this right now, it's if I
Do
go to
you
a
need to?
conference,
No.
do I really need to? But look, a lot of the time, the answer is who, not how. You just got to be around the right people, and the solutions will come. Now, even this conversation right now, you asking me the questions, making me reflect on it. Once again, I just think if you were to go to a conference, go to a business conference, not
Hmm.
a digital marketing conference.
No.
Now, if you're at a digital marketing conference and a business owner's there, you're competing against every other man and his dog who's trying to eat up. Like what's there? It's the same as LinkedIn. Like if you go to LinkedIn, you just realize everyone's posting to get clients. They're not posting to be so generous.
They're not? They're not just nice people?
And look, that's fine. I think the best people, like places to be around and people to connect with, are business owners who are not in the digital industry.
Yeah.
And I usually find they're the best clients, because usually they've got, if they haven't been doing much digital and they've been surviving in business, they're either got a high ticket product or a good business, because they haven't been like trying to arbitrage the internet, just like squeeze as much money out of it. They've just been like doing traditional business. So then when
Yeah.
you inject the steroids of ads in there, it just, like one of
Yeah.
our clients are in private wealth, and they got a $8 million client in December from one of our ads a few months before, like multi-million dollar clients. Like, and then because they're a private wealth firm, they work with a lot of other financial companies who are very elite, and we're just getting referred to the top tier financial institutions in Australia purely just because of a few networks and then delivering the results. So yeah, it's just, I think, yeah, even as I'm reflecting on this now, it's just like, Michael, spend more time around business owners who are not digitally savvy. That's
Yeah.
all you need to do.
So that's funny because I learned this from one of my mentors a really long time ago. She had advised me on, because I was, I need to get more clients. I want to start my own business, whatever, but I don't know where to start. And she gave me really great advice. And it sounds overly simple, but it's very powerful, which is just be active in discussions where business leaders are. Be active.
Interesting.
Don't be spammy. Don't like, oh, here's my service prices. Anyone that wants great local ads, I can run it for you. We've gotten 300% increase in return on ad
Yeah.
spend last week. Like, there's a place for that if they're asking for it. But just be active in discussions where business leaders are. That could be conferences. That could be Facebook pages about a very niche type of
Yeah.
business that you think you could do well in terms of advertising services for. Be active in those discussions. Now, it doesn't mean if you want to go after farming equipment, you start talking about farming equipment in Facebook groups about agriculture. That's not what I'm
Yeah.
saying, guys, because you don't know that. That's not your specialty. But when people in those groups are talking about marketing and promoting, like getting, I don't know, whatever it's going to be, whatever it is that they're promoting, maybe they sell like as a line item in their service offerings. There's something you think you could advertise for them. That's your chance to jump into that discussion with your expertise. You're not spamming them, you're just providing advice. And if they decide to reach out to you through a private message or something, and feel free to encourage them again without being pushy about it, you can get some great long lasting clients because they found you in a very organic way. And I don't mean SEO, I mean just an organic discussion, human to human. And they see you now as the domain expert in this very special thing. It's ads online, whatever that is. If that's what you guys are offering, if it's ads online, they just think about you and they're going to ask you questions, and maybe that leads to some consulting, maybe that leads to management. But regardless, just show off your expertise in a discussion place where there's business leaders. But being around just a bunch of, to your point, PPC practitioners and other, analytic nerds like you and I, is that really gonna? Is that really? Is the trade off gonna be good?
You're doing that, like
Jerk face.
as in just like jerking each other off. Like, I don't want to impress ad people. I just want to impress people who pay me money. And I actually feel like we may need to cut this section out because this is actually like really valuable, really, really valuable. I think that the market is like, how do I go into LinkedIn or places? Because most of the people consuming your material put out there will be other ads people, and they can prop up your material, but they're not going to be the people who end up paying you unless you do a course. And as you've just said, it's like, just be active in the discussion with business owners. Like,
right. Yeah. So unless your market is PPC practitioners because you sell a tool or because you have a course or a book or something, then okay, sure, you show up at those conferences and you might create some new customers in that way. But this idea of being around other PPC practitioners and that's going to lead to referrals, I think is a really dangerous train of thought, because there's a lot of greed. Big surprise, humans being greedy, right? Like, it is what it is. People want all the money for themselves, especially if they're a growing business. And most agencies, even though ethically they know that they cannot handle this. I run into this all the time with consulting. I just took on this account that I cannot handle because it's tons of data. It's whatever. We don't even do e-commerce, but we took them on because it sounded like a good thing for us. It's like there is a lot of that, and there's obviously not all of that is bad. They want to grow, they want to learn, and props to doing that. But in some cases, I work like, well, you and I, we do that sometimes. We're like, this isn't a good fit for me because I'm not an e-commerce specialist. I'm not a lead generation or landing page expert. Like, I'm going to give it to somebody else that I know is going to do a better job than what I could do, or because I'm also not interested in providing those services. It just is what it is. Like, my specialty is X. That's totally fine. But not everyone thinks like that, right? So
Oh, mate, this is actually this has got me thinking, and I don't even know where to take the conversation now, because this is actually so insightful and so simple and so just like, not that it's practical, because you do need to make sure that you get in, but once again, it's who you know. But it's who you know knows. Like, you might just be giving off value to a business owner that you know of, and you're not trying to sell them, but they will have business mates and they'll sell you to their friends. That's the thing, is you don't need to sell directly to people. Do it indirectly. Talk about the results you're getting for people in a certain industry and just pass on value. The word will come back. Have a bit of riz, or charisma as they call it. And it's just so fascinating. Just like we're so conditioned to think that, like, oh, if I just go after who are good agency people who already have my customers, that's not really the case, because they've probably either got deals set up or, look, I've had a few people recently, probably at least 3, who've hit me up going, hey, I'm taking my ads business more seriously now. If you've got any clients that you'd like not good for you, pass them on to me. I'm like, no, like what are you talking? Like, you're just like asking to like get fed for free. And it's not that I'm against that. It's more that the fact of just like, people are asking before they're giving. Like, there was no thing of like, hey man, let's catch up for a coffee. Just like see how, like, I'm super helpful, because when I hang out with mates like that, I'm like, look, if I've got any clients that seem like a better fit for you, I'll pass them on. But
Yeah.
when people are just always going for what they want first, you just get this gross taste in your mouth. But it's the same what we're talking about. It's like be active in the discussion. Active
Hmm.
means giving value, and
Right.
then just trusting that over enough time, if you're good at what you do, you've got a bit of personality, people will refer you work. It just
Yeah.
does happen. Just
Since the
trust it.
beginning of time, that is how this works.
I
If
know.
you need to be around the need, you have to be near it. You have to be by
Yeah.
it. If you know with whatever, there's a million examples of that. But I think it seems too simple. So maybe people don't want to believe that it's that simple. And it's
It's
not
who you know,
easy,
not what
but
you know.
simple.
And you only
Yeah.
know people by connecting with them and creating value, creating a relationship.
Yep.
So simple. But the thing
Be in the
is,
mix. Yeah.
no, I want to know what ad I can write, what video content I create, and then just trust by having a non-direct relationship. Because at the end of the day, people want to create content so they can blast thousands of people and just hope that someone like comes from that, rather than going,
Yeah.
how about I just try and connect with 10 high quality people and see what relationship can come from that?
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine there's a lot of people creating a lot of content. They're spending hours a day on LinkedIn and Facebook and all these things, posting every little thought that comes through their mind on what they do, whether that's CRO or PPC or SEO or whatever it is, and email marketing. And they're just thinking, man, maybe that 1% business owner is going to be trying to do it themselves. And that's why they're even looking or seeing my content in their algorithm. And therefore, that person might contact me. And sure, that does happen, right? You and I have gotten clients that way. It's part of the reason we do this podcast is to hopefully attract some great relationships in terms of businesses, right? But that's not all of why we do it. But you do see a lot of people putting a ton of time into the content with that hope in mind, but not spending any time being in the conversation or having discussions with business owners outside of PPC, right? Like, again, your expertise is marketing, and every business has that need. There's not a business out there that doesn't have some type of marketing need to stay viable or to grow or
Yeah.
whatever their goal is. Being around that conversation in some form or fashion without being spammy and just talking about the 10 newest hacks to use AI for PPC, you're going to get a lot of people. And again, not saying that that's wrong, but just understand that you're creating content for other people that are competing for the same business that you are.
Yeah.
And again, this is not like you're just giving away your secrets or anything, but just understand that the impact of something like that, and that being the sole focus of your strategy for client acquisition versus just being in conversations in areas where business leaders are talking about marketing in general. And then you, with your expertise, can say, man, you guys are doing all this local door-to-door stuff. You're doing all these
Yeah.
expensive conferences and lunch and learns. Have you even tried pay-per-click like Google Ads, where
Yeah.
people are literally searching for the thing that you offer? And you can get some amazing long-term relationships that way. It can be very simple like that.
Yeah. And it's what's wild is you can talk about your results to people, and then they will tell other people about your results without critically going, are these correct? Like, I still
Yeah.
fall for it. I look at other agency sites. I worked at agencies, and I know the results they're posting are either false or they're
Yeah.
a very short sample size, but I'm still like comparing myself. And that's me in the industry with critical thinking, talking about your
Yeah.
results, talking about the results you've delivered for clients, but not trying to sell people.
Yeah.
They will start talking about other people. Like, my
Mm-hmm.
pitch now is basically like, our lead generation services make millions of dollars for clients because they do. And that's all I'm saying. Our clients, when we do lead generation for them, make millions. That's it. I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
why. I'm not saying how. I'm just saying that's it. And that's the seeds that I'm planting out, because that's what we're doing now. So when people are like, oh, we worked with MarketLead, or I know this company that worked with MarketLead that did this, the brand awareness is high. So I'm not selling anymore. But
Yeah.
also, when I do talk, I'm like, you should just run some Google ads, some Facebook ads to a landing page, because that's all we do. At the end of the day, like, the secret isn't the strategy. The secret is the implementation done correctly. Now, people can like take my strategies and try to recreate it, but they can't, because it's the little nuances between that. Like, it's Google ads, Facebook ads, landing pages, some data analytics. Four basic pillars. Wow, how original. If you implement them, you might get 50% of the way there, but that last 50% is like the decade of experience with like hundreds of businesses, over $100 million in ad spend.
Mm-hmm.
I know the things to tweak. So it's like, it's the same here. There's no secrets. Give away the value. But even if you give away all the value, the implementation is so different. They've actually got to do it properly and consistently do it, which most people don't do. So don't worry, it's all safe.
Yeah.
I just think this is actually really interesting for me because it's really making me reflect a lot on just like, I'm just like still consumed like, oh, maybe if I do another YouTube video or a LinkedIn post, but I'm like, I'm just feeding the hungry. Like they're not the ones who are going to actually be the right type of clients. And the clients I have got from LinkedIn are actually like small business owners. This is what's crazy. Small business owners who reached out to me. I was like, well, I'll just get on a call with them, just offer some value. And then I wasn't trying to sell them. And then they've referred me other people because they're like a small business owner. They're like in their network and they just go, I chatted to Michael. He talks about results. He didn't try to sell me.
Yep.
And I implemented some stuff he did and it worked. Like then I've got like an advocate for my business for like maybe the rest of my life.
Yep, I've told several people, I can't even count how many this is not a good fit, like it's like I'm not the right solution for you, but I'll see if I can get you in touch with somebody that's a better fit. Like that happens a lot, especially when people are looking for kind of the everything, they want the SEO and they want the Facebook and they want the email and they want it's like, that's not me. I'm a one-man team. I'm very specialized and I can provide very amazing data-driven, like literally not just bullshit, data-driven marketing solutions, but that's not going to be everybody's fit. Some people want to do other things. You've got to, I think there is that ethical necessity. I wish it felt as a necessity for a lot of agencies, but I was talking with someone the other day and I was like, look, man, I don't do the white label stuff anymore. That's not what I do. So, I know that we used to have that relationship, I don't know, 5 years ago or something, but it's just not a service that I provide anymore. But if you want to create some sort of, happy to have a referral partnership together, we can share in that. And he's the type that just wants to keep everything to himself. If I have a client, I'm not going to send them anywhere. It's like, really? So even if you're not a good fit for that client, you're just going to attract them, sell them, and then figure out a way for someone else to do the work. It's like, there's so many agencies like that. It just grosses me out. But anyway, that's a little tangent.
Look, mate, we can't all be the Jesus of PPC like you.
Right? Exactly. Jesus, see you later.
Mate, you've got a heart of gold or a heart of coal. I don't know, somewhere between. It's not in between. It's either gold or coal. That's one way. Mate, that was a decent section. I reckon we turn down that because we got to spend the rest of the time talking about that. So
of course.
Let's talk about one more thing on my list.
Sure.
Now, we've got about 20 minutes. That's probably a good chunk to talk about this.
Okay.
I know this is a big thing now, but we've just got to keep having the conversation about it. AI and automation replacing PPC managers, or even above that, replacing marketing specialists or digital marketing specialists. So I internally, like not even internally, I've just come up, like my brain just works in frameworks and I spend a lot of time just self-reflecting, but things just kind of come through. And a big methodology that's come through recently for me is I call it the 10-80-10 principle, which is a lot of times someone might get work and then they delegate. They either do the work themselves, so they're doing 100% of the work, or they do like 20% of the strategy and then get someone else to do the other 80% of the results. Why I call it 10-80-10 is because I like to call like 10% is the start, is like high quality strategy and direction. The next 80% is delegation or doing the work. And then the last 10%, God forbid, is quality checking. Now, the reason why most people, when they delegate or offshore work, like, people you're talking about, the white label people who sell services, is the reason they go bad is because they don't know how to quality check because they're not actually good at their skill set. With AI and automation, people just think they can just throw all the information in there with that first bit of the strategy and then just trust the automation without that last 10% of quality checking. So I think what's going to happen more and more now with AI and automation is you've got to feed it really good inputs, but you've got to be really good at your craft to know what the output is and make sure it's like absolutely aligned. And you can spend more and more time automating and leveraging AI and automation in the middle, but you've got to have the human touch on the front end and the back end, or you're just going to be cooked. And you will lose clients and they'll know it. They'll see that like, hey, this person's just like putting in ChatGPT. I can tell it. I'm paying them a lot of money now. There's no quality checking or refinement or alignment here. What are your thoughts, mate? Because this is just my experience right now, seeing amazing results with it. But you've got to make sure that you're quality checking at those end. as
A
well as
10.
you're doing the strategy at the start.
Yeah, so you know me, I'm a super nerd. I'm always looking at the
Really? That's
latest.
crazy.
Yeah, crazy, surprising, right? So I'm real deep into the AI stuff, and let's just say LLMs to be more technically specific here, because that's what most of us are talking about. We talk about
Yeah.
ChatGPT or the Claudes or whatever. We know the major players, in the game with OpenAI and Gemini and Claude, like 3.5 Sonnet, for example. Now Perplexity, okay. I mean, in terms of like the biggest players, though, right? No shade on Perplexity by any means. It has its place. It has its place. But
Perplexity
we're
will
talking
take
about.
a sponsorship if you still want one.
Yes, of course. I'm happy to, and we'll talk better about you. Kidding. So we know the major players that we're talking about. Now we've got DeepSeek as well, though we don't know how long it's going to last for certain countries to be able to use that technology, because they're working on enacting laws to not allow people to be able to use those, like in the US. They're worried about
DeepSeek or just any?
DeepSeek. Yeah, DeepSeek in particular is a Chinese-owned company, and they're worried
Yeah,
about
I'm
data
aware. But
mining.
why?
And
I'm not aware of the pushback on it.
yeah, so this is a very recent thing, I think as of today or yesterday or something, the recording timing of this recording. But yeah, it's basically they're trying to wrap it in. We don't want us advancing the technologies of China. I guess that's how I interpreted what they're saying. So there's, and they're also concerned about privacy issues and data mining, etc. So they're thinking about fining people. I think regular consumer up to 1 million, businesses up to 100 million, putting people in prison for up to 20 years or something for using the technology. Again, as a U.S. citizen, there is, I think, at least one country that's already banned completely at the federal level the usage of DeepSeek. So that's also a player. I was excited about it from an open source standpoint, to be able to see the code, and also the cost effectiveness. I mean, if the rumors are correct, yeah, exactly, yeah, versus $200 a month or even $20 a month for OpenAI.
Yeah.
Depending on your plan. So there was a lot of promise in that. Of course, we had those concerns as Americans and other countries about privacy and things like that, being a Chinese-owned company, et cetera, et cetera. But we know the major players. One thing I've been kind of rattling around in my brain is, because you had touched on a little bit in terms of clients recognizing that you're using it. At the end of the day, use the tools that are going to help you provide value for the services that you're offering. Who cares? If the client has a problem with you using AI, I mean, can I use spreadsheets? Is that okay with you, Mr. Business? I mean, come on,
No,
that's ridiculous.
manual calculator with those
Yeah,
dots on the string.
and I'll talk a little bit about how I've updated my usage of it as well. But I just wanted to kind of talk to you about this, because it's something I've been playing around with, which is putting disclaimers in emails about. Sometimes I'll just make it super short and sweet. I'll say written by me. What's the thing? Written by me, enhanced with ChatGPT, right? Because I don't want the client to feel like this is all just ChatGPT, because if they've ever even used it, they realize that it's not going to be able to think of all of these ways of putting it or whatever. But I also want them to not read it and go, is this even like him? Like, is this just like a bot that's writing it?
Yeah.
Because look, at the end of the day, I give it all the ideas and the discussion points, things that I know are important, whatever, but I want it to clean it up. It's better at grammar and the misspellings and whatever. And the way of just formatting and making the tone maybe a little bit more professional or whatever. I want that. That's me enhancing the things that I'm giving my clients. I use it a lot for communications. Again, its strength is language. So I try to lean into that and use it for language purposes. But curious, what do you think about that in terms of the disclaimers? Because I could really go either way. I think eventually there might be policies where tools like Gmail and Outlook will automatically tell the person that this may have been written by an LLM. I think we're getting there eventually, just for kind of transparency reasons. But what are your thoughts on that?
Look, I always touch up. So, for example, one of the biggest use cases we're using it for now, what I'm using it for particularly, is when I have a call with a client, we record the call and there's a transcript with it. Or if I do a Loom video, there's a transcript. But then I just get the transcript and I'll put into ChatGPT going, for example, if it was a call, like maybe for an hour, like I don't want to be writing long emails and I want to have a call with a client. We're throwing ideas, talking for ages, and I go, summarize this into practical steps with who's responsible and timelines.
Right.
And within like 30 seconds, maybe a minute, because it is I've noticed GPTs being slower, but I think because the thinking power is much better now.
Depends on the model. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I
Yeah.
don't think there's an issue, but then when I look at it, I'll tweak things again. So it's more that it's taken a bunch of ideas that I've co-created with the
Right.
client, put it in our language, and just formatted it. I never ask it to give me ideas. I just
Mm.
ask it to summarize things or make it more concise. So I'm
Yeah.
not asking it to give new ideas or write it in a language that, or like ways I don't speak. So it looks very Michael Nadalin. Actually, it
Yep.
doesn't, because my like emails to people are just like one lines or like a few lines with some emojis in them.
Yeah.
So when there's not emojis there or it's like a bit longer than usual, they're probably like, this ain't him.
Yeah.
I just think it depends on if you're using it to summarize work. Like you said, you're giving it inputs
Yeah.
in like maybe a call or a loom or something,
Mhm.
versus you're going, pump me out a strategy here.
Yeah.
It just depends on what the like input versus output is.
Agreed. I wouldn't wholesale throw it out for brainstorming. I think there's a place for that, especially if you use better models that
Yeah.
do the quote unquote
Oh, I still
thinking or
use it
whatever.
for brainstorming, definitely,
Yep.
but I don't present that to the client. I would take the
Yeah.
ideas and then reword it myself and to do
Exactly.
it. So it's not like we
Yeah.
don't use it for brainstorming. It's more that when I give the work to the client, it's when it's primarily been me, versus if I'm brainstorming, I'll just cherry pick what's out and then phrase it into our own work.
Yeah. And of course, you got to look at it, guys, from the hallucinations, right? Look for those. Sometimes we'll just throw something in. You're like, where did you even get
Yeah.
that from? Especially if you use the
But
lower
that's why you
models.
need that
Yeah.
quality check, that last
Yeah.
10% I was talking about. You've got to have the skill set and expertise. Now, there's either two issues that will come from that. Number one, the client won't notice and you ruin their business. Or number two, they do notice it and they think you're an idiot.
Yeah.
And then you lose reputation.
Yeah. Funny, not funny, but yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a dark humor fan, so that was funny to me. But yes, that is brutally true. That's funny because it makes me think about when there was I mean, there still exists. There's a data analyst, Chat GPT, and I do get asked about this sometimes too in consulting relationships and during those calls. And do you use that? And when it came out, and for a while I was experimenting with it. It's always tricky because if you're going to give that model to these businesses, again, you are essentially giving it. They're training off of it unless you have a certain tier of membership. You've got to anonymize that data. Like oh my god, I've heard so many nightmare situations of API keys getting passed into things. I'm just like, no, no, no. You can just copy paste that. You have to change things, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, the data analyst thing. So, give it a data set and say, summarize it. What are the top insights? Make some graphs, whatever. I eventually have obviously created my own software for these things, and I integrate different LLMs depending on the need into that software. But again, I'm leaning more on the strength of language,
Yeah.
summarizations, whatever, or interpreting advanced statistical outputs, etc. That's all good and great, but I think when you start just dumping data into it, you're going to get, even with, believe me, guys, I get real analytical, even with the most sculpted, intensive prompts you can give it. Sometimes it will just make things up. Those are those
Yeah.
hallucinations we alluded to. Sometimes it just completely incorrectly like reads the graph, no matter how
Mm.
clear it is. It'll say this product got this many more sales, but actually, if you look at the graph, that is clearly not the case. Or it'll
Yeah.
use a different month. So you just got to be incredibly careful about if you're going to use it. I'd say if you're going to use it, keep it simple, but ideally create your own
Yeah.
tools and lean on it for language purposes mostly, if you can.
I think you've literally perfectly just like emphasized the point we were chatting about earlier. Just like the quality check, you're only going to know, but so many people don't know good outputs and
Yeah,
they'll just
right.
believe it. The reason why you're saying,
Yeah,
check it, all that stuff is because you've obviously seen outputs that are bad and you've been able to go, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad.
right.
If you don't have those years of experience, how are you going to like think that like you're going to, like the machine's going to be doing it perfectly? I think
Yeah,
the problem now is it's same with Google Ads. Because more is becoming automated, people don't know what good and bad is. And when you don't know what good or bad is, a new generation of people are either with GPTs or LLMs or advertising, they just assume that the output is good.
yeah.
good.
That's
Not
true.
great, not amazing, but good. But like most of the time, it's horrible. And even like you said, if you sculpt it with the right prompts and then also the right data,
Hmm.
if you've got to know the right data to put in, you've got to know data. And the
Right.
only reason why you know data is because you've experienced it so much hands-on for years. But there's going to come a point where people are like, I can just plug in Google Ads to ChatGPT and it's going to tell me everything. But that's going to be the data that Google makes available, which isn't amazing, and what's ever been programmed into the GPTs, which is based on this new wave.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get the finger on what I'm trying to say right now. It's basically like
Yeah.
you've got to be extraordinary at what you do
Yeah.
without the technologies. So then you can actually become like God mode with the technologies.
Yeah.
It is
Understand its
steroids.
strengths. Yeah. Understand its strengths to enhance your existing expertise and the skill sets that you have. Don't let it become a handicap for you or your
Yep.
business. That's putting yourself in a real tough position, a real
Yeah.
problematic
It's like the
position with that.
difference. I think a lot of people are using it as a crutch because they don't know like how to walk, they don't know how to balance. And I get that. But then you've got to become so good at something through trial and error and experience and delivering results and then creating your own processes and systems internally inside of you and your brain.
Yeah.
So then instead of it being a crutch, they're more like those moon boot shoes where like you just like in like old TV shows where they have springs underneath. So
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of like you
Yeah.
can it actually does propel you forward faster rather
Yeah.
than you just trying to be like thinking it's just going to support you because
Yeah.
yeah, it's when you're good at this stuff, it actually makes your life faster and
Yeah.
easier. But if you're not, it will actually make it worse. I think there's just going to be this divide, especially I see so much stuff on LinkedIn with all these tools and all these scripts and all these things. And I'm like, they're cool, but they're not doing anything. And then if they're not doing anything and people think they're cool, they're like, well, this is what I need to focus on. And now because I haven't got any results from it, maybe there's something wrong with me rather than just going back to first principles with advertising, marketing, ads, data,
Yeah.
and just building up from there. Like it's the same with the referral partners and the clients. Look for the medium to long term approach, not the short term. The same with
Yeah.
ads and GPGs. Look for the medium to long term approach, not the immediate wins from it. Like
Mm.
slow down. You'll go
Yeah.
there faster. Any shortcut is not the short. The only shortcut is like the long road.
Yes. Yep.
I get
Yeah. You
passionate
meant.
about this because it's just so much crap out there,
Oh
dude,
yeah.
and so
Oh
many
yeah.
mistakes. And I get work from clients. I'm like, what the hell is this? And like, oh, we said put this through ChatGPT. I'm like, you're wasting my time. Like, be good at what you do. Like, I'm
Yeah.
good at what I do. I expect the same thing in back. Like, don't be lazy with this.
And these models are expecting you, if you're using it for a very specialized use case, you're not just, write a poem in the, like if it was Eminem at a theme park or something, right? Like if you're
Yes.
not trying to do something fun like that with language, and this is really something very specialized, like data analysis or something, there's only so much training data that's in there, but it's also leaning on you to understand what to ask and that's relevant. Now, some responses are like better than others. Some will say, hey, here's ways to enhance this, or like make sure that you think through this, or this isn't applicable for everybody. I'm hoping that these LLMs start kind of training
Yeah.
people to think more critically as well, right? I think there's kind of like an extra bonus out of this is that if people read the whole prompt response, the response rather, they'll start kind of thinking a little bit more clearly about how to think through things. There isn't one answer for everything. There isn't like secrets necessarily. It's just critical thinking. It's really thinking broadly as well as narrowly, depending on the context. And I think those are all things to consider. You mentioned about scripts and codes. There's a lot of content about that, about using these LLMs for creating scripts, and there's also I think courses that are coming out now and things like that. And I use it a lot for coding. But here's the thing, guys. I've been learning code before this came along, like for what 5+ years now. So I
Yeah.
can quickly recognize, I can build a really good prompt because I know how I think through the
Yeah.
function and through the loops and whatever. And I think through that already. So I get much better answers. But then most importantly, I look at the responses and go, what are you thinking? I would never create the function this way, or like that
Yeah.
is a terrible way to do it. We're not even vectorizing whatever. But that comes from the education. And I'm seeing this now too, where I actually just was speaking to someone through email the other day. They were mentioning, yeah, I'm going to be using Claude and ChatGPT to start. You really, and this is great. Like they were inspired by the Optimizer episode that I did with Frederick Valles on data analysis for PPC, and they're really inspired by utilizing statistics in their PPC analysis and learning more about that. But then I hear them also saying, hey, I'm going to be using ChatGPT to learn that stuff. And there's a part of me that's like, good, they're inspired and they're going to get a lot out of that. But there's another part of me that worries they're going to over rely on ChatGPT to give them all the answers, when I know through years of arduous study that statistics it's a whole world. It's a mountain. It's not a hill. There is it's literally a course in most universities. Not a course. It's a degree in most universities.
Like it's a full degree,
right?
And even when you get out of it, you're only like 2%.
Right. How to practically apply those things. It's a whole world. So I see these things like, can you teach me statistics? It's like, I appreciate that you think that I could do that, or teach me Python or something. It's like, guys, this is an entire. You're talking about software engineering. You're talking about statistics. This is a whole degree program. It's not that simple. I love to give you the 10 tips to be a master at Python for PPC, but you've got to learn the basics. You got to build the foundations, and then if you want to work with these LLMs to help you with that, I think that is a great idea. I do it myself, but I'm very, very cautious when I'm using it, and I'm always making tweaks to it and going like, stop truncating, stop using placeholders, no pseudocode, make sure that you put this function before you got to handhold it a little bit, but you have to know how to do the handholding in order to get the results that you're looking for. So that's really, really vital. Don't use it as a crutch.
Mate, that's powerful. I saw something the other day that, with a lot of this stuff, there's 3 stages. It's number 1, you've got to start to recognize patterns, which is like learning things. Number 2 is you've got to use the patterns to verify that you've recognized the right patterns and, get real world feedback. And then number 3 is you create your own patterns, creating your own softwares, dashboards, all these things, revolutionizing and taking it further. And everything you just said then is like, you're right. Like these skills take 5 to 10 years to get good at, great at, but not even excellent at. And you've got to be doing it all day, every day. I was speaking to my executive assistant the other day, and I was just showing him some stuff really basic. He's like, Michael, how long did you take to get good at this? And he's like, I'm like, I don't know, 5 years. And he's like, dude, you're like as good as someone who's like been doing it for 15. But I'm like, but I do this every single day. And then I've got other team members who are like, oh, can you teach me how to do that? I'm like, bro, like, this isn't like I'm just like giving you a cheat sheet and then like I'm downloading it like Neo in the Matrix getting plugged into karate. That's good. It's good that things take time, because the thing is people will just give up on it. And if you're not like hungry to learn the skills that will apply for the rest of your life, you'll be one of these people trying to like sample a bit of everything, but you're not good at anything. And you've got to like really decide what skill stack you want to master, and what, like for me, it's Google Ads, Meta Ads, landing page, data analysis, and consulting. That's what I've mastered. I'm just like focusing so much on.
So Michael, I know we're out of time. I wanted to just wrap this up with something that we couldn't record because I was basically on a beach trying to record, and there's no Wi-Fi. It wasn't working, but I wanted to put this in one of our episodes, and since it's very relevant to what we're talking about, you and I were talking about shortcuts, right? And a lot of content being sort of food for people who are looking for shortcuts, but the problem is people that are constantly seeking the shortcuts, let's call it in PPC, mastery of anything, right? They're looking for these hacks, these shortcuts, whatever, to success, but they find themselves sort of running in circles, and they go anxiously from one guru to the next, or one new script to another, or whatever, and they never seem to stabilize. They never seem to whatever. And we talked about this. You don't see surgeons, I mean, maybe, but putting out, top 5 ways to do heart surgery or whatever in 2025, because it's an advanced thing. It takes a lot of sophistication. It's very nuanced thing. It depends on what's going on with the patient, whatever. But at the end of the day, when you are looking constantly for shortcuts, you're never building the expertise to feel very confident about what you are doing. So therefore, if you find something that's a tool or a checklist or whatever, you'll never fully feel confident in trusting that that is the ultimate whatever, because you took the shortcut. You don't know that that is all inclusive. You don't know. So you end up going in circles. So I think that's just something that we touched on that was really insightful, and I wanted to bring it to our audience as well.
Yeah, it's called a simple concept called direct experience. You need to have direct experience, but leverage other people's learnings for the first 20% of your learning, so you're not just like failing in the wrong direction. Use these things to get you the first 20%, so you're like, look, I'm on the path, it's showing some results. But after that first 20%, you got to kill the guru mentality and just think like, I'm walking this path alone.
Exactly.
Or I'm walking it with my clients and their data, not going, oh, I wish I could look at Michael's accounts and see what he's doing. Like, the clients' accounts you work on, the team members you work with, that is the feedback loop. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of agencies and people have horrible clients and horrible team members, and that's a horrible feedback loop. But also just use results as the North Star. Are we hitting results or not? And if just use that as the ping point, there's no checklist, there's no video, there's no script that will save you. It's direct experience and just like your own knowledge over decades and decades. Well, not even decades, but years and years and years.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful. I love it. Mic drop. Michael, thank you for your time, sir. This was fantastic. Where can people find you?
MarketLead.com.au, Michael Nadalin on LinkedIn, and MarketLead on YouTube. Cory Lindholm,
awesome.
What about you?
All right. Ads by Cory. I'm on LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify for PPC Unfiltered. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. Subscribe if you haven't. We're trying to build our subscriber base. We just actually exceeded 300,000 subscribers. I'm kidding. 300. We're starting out. It's only been a couple years. It's a slow grind, but everything you guys can do to help support the channel, we'll keep wanting to bring you the content. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you in the next episode. Thanks, Michael.
See you, mate. Bye.
All right.